Alright, so what's up? This is going to be a review of my Trek Roscoe 8. This is the 2019 model. The 2020 model is actually out now. I've had this one for right at 1 year. I'm like a week past the 1 year mark. And I thought I'd do a review on it. I've done a review on, I guess, every bike I've owned for any kind of decent length of time at this point. And I just kind of wanted to do one for this one. I'm sure I'm going to have this a lot longer. This isn't like my last bike review video where it was that I'd owned it for like 7 years and I was about to sell it. This is just at the 1 year mark. I think what I'll do is I'll start by talking about just the bike without the modifications and what I think about it. So this kind of fits right into that category where you could really spend this amount or just a smidge more and get you a full suspension, or you could do like I did and what quite a lot of people seem to recommend. I instead of getting a full suspension that's a low-end full suspension around this price, you can actually get a very nice hardtail for this price range, which was the route that I went. The area that I live, we don't have like lift access bike parks. We don't have a lot of flow trails, things like that. There's a lot of climbing. Anywhere you ride around here, there's a lot of climbing. And hardtails just climb better. I know the technology is getting there, but if you just want something that's very efficient, hardtail's the way to go. And as bad as I want a full suspension, to get one that has the components I wanted, $3,000 or so at least. So, saved a lot of money and bought a hardtail that, to be honest, I'm more than happy with. So I'll start with talking about the 1x. This is the SRAM NX Eagle 1x12 drivetrain. When this was out, when this bike was being sold last year, this was the budget 1x12 that SRAM offers. Now they actually came out with the Eagle SX line, which is even cheaper 1x12 than this. About from this is the GX Eagle, and then you have your XX and XO. This is a really great drivetrain. I haven't had any issues with it. I've heard of some people having issues with it being kind of finicky and needing a lot of tinkering and stuff, but really I haven't had any more tinkering type issues, you know, just needing to kind of tune and tweak your barrel adjustable here and there than I did on my old bike. I mean, if you ride a bike, you're gonna have to do work on it. This thing's been awesome. I did, having said that, just the last time I rode, if you're really observant, you may notice my chain's a little short. I actually just blew my chain completely apart on a ride yesterday, but I'm almost positive that was actually that I kicked a rock up in it right in the middle of going into a climb and just knocked it apart, and then I chain breaker multi-tooled it back together and got back to the car. No other weird issues with it. While we're here, I'm going to discuss something that has been a problem with this bike. This has been brought up in other reviews of this bike, the rear hub. So the rear hub on this bike, I'm not the only person who has had issues with this hub. I took it back within the first month that I got it. I'd only been to a couple of trails on it, and I took it to my bike shop that I got it from, Cycle Works in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Took it back to them. They went through the whole thing. The hub was totally fine. It was just making kind of a funky noise. All it is it makes kind of a, what other people I've heard refer to as like a cement mixer kind of noise if you're just coasting. But to tell you the truth, the only way you can hear it is if you have it on a stand. Riding it, you don't hear it at all. It doesn't seem to affect it at all. It's super smooth. I've ridden it for a year with that very faint noise. The guy at the bike shop told me that he thinks it's something to do with these 1x12 drivetrains. There's just so much cassette here to resonate every little harmonic, any noise that you could get. I've seen other people talk about, you know, needing to replace it because when it does that, it's blown up. You didn't blow your hub up. It's just some kind of weird noise somewhere. It has, it's worked great. I've ridden the crap out of this thing for a year now. Otherwise, this bike is awesome. I love it. It came with the tires that are on it now, the Maxxis Recon Plus. They're 27.5 by 2.8. I did have them set up tubeless at the shop the day that I got the bike, so I can't really say compared to how it was before. I didn't ride it stock. I rode it with the tubeless tires the day I got it, with the blue valve stems that kind of match the other blue things that I knew I was going to be doing. And I don't know. I have actually not had to have these wheels trued. I haven't actually haven't even pinch flatted on it. So yeah. Well, haven't pinch flatted, it's tubeless. Haven't had to have these wheels trued or anything. It's been awesome. This bike's been super reliable. The dropper post it comes with is again just a ball and trigger house brand dropper post. first dropper post I've ever had. I'm telling you, if you've never ran a dropper post, you are so missing out. It is an absolute game changer. I know I'm not the first person to say that. I know that's been said on mountain bike magazines and channels and stuff for a couple of years now, but holy crap. That is my favorite thing about this bike. Plus tires, when compared to riding like traditional with mountain bike tires, you know, 2.0, 2.2, somewhere around there, even 2.4s. I actually had 2.4 Maxxis Minion DHRs on my old bike. These things are just sweet for the area that I'm in. The Plus tires really smooth the trails out a ton. I've gained so much confidence on these tires. The amount of grip that they have for as fast rolling as they are is just insane to me. I can climb stuff that I couldn't climb even with my much knobbier DHRs. I cannot stress enough how much I love the Plus tires. That was such a big factor for being able to stick with a hardtail instead of going full suspension, was looking at Plus hardtails. This is a new segment of bikes just within the last couple of years, is the Plus hardtails, and they're totally a game changer for people that don't want to spend, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 on a nice full suspension bike. Up next, I will go ahead and mention the fork really quick. It's a RockShox Judy, which, if I'm not mistaken, is basically the equivalent of a Plus 115 or 110 by 15 through axle, kind of a version of like the TK Solo, but just for, you know, Plus tire bikes, and it will also work with 29-inch wheels. It's 120 mil travel, fork, air sprung, and the 2020 Roscoe 8, they moved on to the RockShox 35, which actually that fork was not released yet when this bike was being made and sold. That is a nicer fork. It's about a $500 fork, where this one is around $400 on its own. But that and a couple other changes they made to the Roscoe jumped the Roscoe 8 price up to, I believe, $1,800 or $1,900, where this one retailed for $1,500 or $1,600. I got it when Trek had one of their spring sales going. Got it for $1,459, $1,450, somewhere around there. So the new one, I'm not gonna say it's not as good for the money, because like I said, you do get a nicer fork. But personally, I felt that the value on the Roscoe 8 went down. Just your value per dollar went down when they moved from the 2019 model to the 2020 model. Now, I feel like if you're looking at 2020 Roscoes, the 2020 Roscoe 7 is actually probably the best bang for your buck. That's going to be down to how much you're okay with spending and personal preference on colors, all those sorts of things. But for me, the 2019 Roscoe was, I'd waited for a while to get me a new bike and move on to something that had a one-by, had a dropper post, had some little bit better quality hydraulic disc brakes. I'd really squeezed every ounce I could out of my old bike. And if you're in the same boat where you've kind of milked an old, cheap cross-country bike along as far as you can, as cheaply as you can, that kind of thing, I really think the Roscoes are a super nice kind of middle ground between just using a cross-country bike, which is, I mean, that's what a lot of people start riding trails on, and going up to, you know, a full suspension, $3,000+ bike. I think the plus hardtails are a really, really cool path to start to look into as far as nicer bikes go. Specialized has, I think it's called the Fuse. Trek, of course, has the Roscoe line. It's really something that's just popped up over the last couple of years, these plus hardtails, and they're so good for the money. I mean, for $1,400, $1,500, $1,600 to get a 1x12, to get a dropper post, to get a nice air sprung fork, hydraulic disc brakes that are not like bottom of the barrel Tektro brakes. These are the Shimano MT200s, which, yes, they're not SLX or XTs or anything, but they're darn good brakes for a kind of mid-budget bike. You know, somebody who's starting to get real serious about their riding, but they either don't have the means to or the want to spend enough to get a really high-end bike. This is great for the money. Now, last, I'm going to talk just about the few things that I've changed. I actually brought the stem. This is the stem off of my old bike. It's the Trubitive Husfeld stem. It's a 40 mil stem, 0 degree rise, and I actually had that on my old bike, and I brought it with me to the shop when they were building this bike, because I was super pumped to get this thing. I called the bike shop like every single day and was like, so is my bike in yet? Is my bike in yet? After I got it ordered. And when it finally came in, they actually called me that morning and they're like, hey man, your bike's in if you want to come hang out while we build it and stuff. So I brought I brought the stem from my old bike, and they actually just put it on there right away. The bike stock would come with a 60 mil stem. I knew from riding my old bike and tweaking on it and stuff that I really like short stem, wide bars. I did not bring the handlebars. I did ride it a few times with the stock bars because it comes with, I think they're maybe 10 mil rise, but they're shorter or no rise. Bontrager, just house brand, 760 or 780 mil bars, which was cool because I do like wide bars, but I just don't. I tried it and I don't like the no rise. I just like having a little bit of rise on the bars. So I got Renthal fat bars. These had actually just came out just a few months before I got this bike, the 800 millimeter wide version of the fat bar. So the bike shop I ordered it from, you can get, it's like 20 or 30% off of any parts, clothing, gear, stuff like that within the same month that you order your bike. So I ordered these through them, which was pretty sweet because with the discount it knocked them down to like 60 bucks for the bars, for Renthal fat bars. Stuck those on there. Got the Deity, I can't remember the exact thing, it's called the knuckle dusters. They have a couple different versions, but these are their kind of fatter grips, and I wear a 2X in a riding glove. Just makes it more comfortable if you have bigger hands, and I really like those. And then to match that with the Race Face Chesters, which are pretty close, at least in my colorblind eyes, they're pretty close to the same blue as the Deity. I'm gonna go ahead and say knuckle dusters again, but I can't remember for sure if those are the knuckle dusters or whatever their other really popular grip is. But these Chesters are sweet. These are such a good pedal for the money. It's like 50 bucks for nice spiked pedals. They're composite. You don't have to have metal. Composites are actually always going to be lighter than your metal pedals, and these still have a chromoly spindle. So, I mean, you're not going to break that. Or, I mean, you could, but not doing anything that would be sensible on this bike, you're not going to break that. And replaceable pins and all that. Really great pedals for the money. See, and what else? Oh, and I just stuck a fender that I got off of eBay on there. That was like $3 or something on eBay, because I wasn't sure about the whole fender thing. I'd never ran a front fender after having one. Holy crap, man, order you a fender. it's such a cheap thing that just saves your you know, from so much mud. It's great. And I mean, it keeps your gear cleaner, keeps your bike cleaner. You're not having to clean near as much crud out of your stanchions and everything after a ride. It's so nice. Now, it does maybe look a little bit funny in the video. I tried to do the whole 3M, kind of protect your bike with 3M tape. That's really for like wrapping cars with and stuff, because I love the paint scheme on this bike. I love this matte finish, and I didn't want to ruin that. So I got a roll of this stuff for like 15 bucks on Amazon. I did not do a great job. I got a lot of bubbles in it, but when I peel that off, paint's gonna look great. And I think I'm gonna do an all mountain style frame protection on it next time around, because it looks like it goes on a lot easier. And I mean, for 30 bucks versus like 15 or 17, and it'll just look a lot cooler and cleaner. This has some pretty obvious lines where the gloss starts and stops. And I'm gonna end it with, if I were allowed to upgrade some stuff on this bike, what would I spend the money on? What would I go for as far as upgrades? I would say probably brakes would be the first thing I would upgrade if I was spending, a couple $100 or less on an upgrade. I would probably go with brakes. Get some like XT or SLX brakes for it. The ones that are on it are fine. They're not the worst thing in the world. You can totally one finger brake with them. But when you get into some really steep stuff, I would prefer to have a little bit more stopping power than the ones that are on here. But they are not bad at all for what comes with for what you're paying for the bike. They're not bad at all. And then lastly, if I had to go back and say, would I have waited and got a full suspension over this? Personally, and this is going to vary heavily based on every individual looking at bikes and, your budget, how much money you have to work with. For me, and the amount of money that I can give to mountain biking, to my absolute main favorite hobby, mountain biking, I am so glad that I went ahead and pulled the trigger on this instead of waiting until I could finally, justify and squeeze out getting a full suspension. For the money though, and this isn't even specifically about this bike, and I feel like I keep bringing it back to this, but the plus size hardtail thing is no joke. It is so good. It obviously does not replace full suspension. You can't replace full suspension with just having extra travel out of your tires and stuff. It's not the same. That is not That's squishy with no any kind of controlled rebound. It's not the same thing as rear shock. You have to be very clear about that. But if something in this range is in your budget and like a $3,000 bike is not, oh my God, just go ahead and get it. Like, it's so good for the money. The amount of confidence my confidence just on the trail so skyrocketed after I took this bike out. I mean, stuff that I used to hit, if I hit it at the speed that I would have been just, nail-bitingly fast on my old cross country that I had. It was an old GT Karakoram that I had put wider bars and shorter stem and some better pedals on and a nice air fork. Even on that bike versus this with the slightly slacker head tube, and it's not extreme like some of them are now. Man, it is wild the difference that it made. I could go down the same section of trail at what used to feel like I was about to die levels of fast, and I felt like I was just taking a walk in the park. And what is then nail-bitingly fast on this, I would have never even considered hitting trails at on my old bike. It is totally something I would recommend. 2019 Trek Roscoe 8. Get the 8. It's worth it. For 2020, I say the 7 is probably the best way to go unless you can squeeze the extra out for the 8. It's still cool. I just don't like the paint scheme. But that's it. That's it for this all over the place review. Thank you for watching. And ask me any questions you have about this bike. I did a ton of research before I finally went with this one, so I probably could answer most of your questions about it, down to the chainstay length and stuff. So thanks for watching.